Hey everyone, what's going on? So yesterday, on November 19th, one of the big stories in the media was the death of Bobby Brown Jr. And although he actually died on November 18th, they didn't report the story until November 19th, which, if you've been following what I've been talking about, I've been watching for this day, November 19th, because it's the day that Charles Manson died. And if you go back and look at a bunch of my recent videos, I've talked lots about Charles Manson and how Charles Manson is important to this. And they reported this death on the same day that Charles Manson died. And there's a bunch of other riddles I'm going to talk about with this death, but I just want to point out, back in 2017, in October, I was talking all about how the kneeling during the national anthem in the NFL and Donald Trump calling out the NFL for kneeling, how it was all synced up to Charles Manson and his helter-skelter theory about black people rising up, right? Think about kneeling, rising up. I also talked about a theme with the film Stand By Me and how it was connected to Kiefer Sutherland, and then we got the Sutherland Springs church shooting a few days later, and so on. But notice on the very same day that Charles Manson died, I also talked about a story with Christina Aguilera doing a bodyguard tribute to Whitney Houston at the AMAs. And the reason this was interesting is because Christina Aguilera is known for messing up the lyrics while singing the national anthem. And Whitney Houston is known as a person who sang probably the greatest national anthem at a Super Bowl of all time, right? So she does this tribute that's on the same day that Charles Manson died. And now we're getting a story about, Bobby Brown Jr., who has a connection to Whitney Houston, right? And it's on the same day, we get the news on the same day Charles Manson died. So obviously I knew that when Bobby Brown Jr. died, there had to be some type of importance to this. And it's interesting that he died on November 18th as well, because this was the same day as the NBA draft. And if you followed a lot of the Charles Manson stuff, I talked a lot about how the Houston Rockets were important to the Charles Manson stuff, such as James Harden equaling 194 and these Francis Bacon ciphers that I've talked a whole lot about, and Charles Manson equaling 194 in these Francis Bacon ciphers, and a whole lot more. Even Russell Westbrook was born on the same day that Charles Manson was born, which is also the same day that Disney Plus was founded, and much, much more. But I'm pretty sure that Bobby Brown Jr. dying is somehow related to this. And part of the reason is that he died at the age of 28. And a gematria of rockets just so happened to equal 28. And another big thing I was talking about with the Houston Rockets was how it was important to a king narrative and also important to China. And China equals 28. And this stems back to clear back in 2017, I was following a major space theme and how it synced up to the NBA and the Houston Rockets, and then we got the death of China Thomas, who was the sister of Isaiah Thomas, and he was known for playing for the Sacramento Kings and wearing the number 22, and the word king just so happens to sum to 22, and his sister died in a Toyota Camry in King County, Washington, and Toyota, the word Camry means crown, and there was a bunch of things that were synced up to king symbolism. And then think about how LeBron King James just won the NBA Finals and so on. And think about the name China Thomas. China's space program was really getting ramped up at the time. That's why the Houston Rockets got knocked out of the playoffs by the Lakers this year on Yao Ming's birthday. Yao Ming, the Chinese NBA player and so on, right? That's also why Steve Nash is now the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, because the Brooklyn Nets were the team who the Lakers played last year in the preseason in China. And that was right around the same time that Daryl Morey had tweeted about China, right? If you go back, the Houston Rockets general manager tweeted about China. It was on the same day that Joker film came out, and that Joker film was synced up to the Aurora, Colorado Batman shooting. And in that movie, there was a preview of the James Bond movie called Skyfall that said the word Aurora in it. And then Aurora, Colorado got shot up that night. And it was the Aurora Plaza in China. And think about how Sean Connery just died. Sean Connery, known for James Bond. I talked about a lot of this in my previous videos, but, there is a relationship here with China, James Bond, the Houston Rockets, and Charles Manson, and now we're getting the death of Bobby Brown Jr. synced up to this narrative. That's also why James Harden has been in talks about going to the Brooklyn Nets, right? And he's a perfect guy for the Brooklyn Nets because Brooklyn Nets equals 64, and James Harden also equals 64. So if he does go to the Nets, it's an absolute perfect fit, and so on. But it's interesting, Brooklyn Nets equals 172, and the word moon in Jewish gematria equals 170, which is important to the space theme, which was also important to the death of Sean Connery that I talked about back in April, how he was synced up to the moon, and he died on the same day that Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon, died, and which was also the day of the Great Moon Hoax and a bunch of other things, right? And then Sean Connery dies on the night of a full blue moon on Halloween, and much more. But Steve Nash going to coach the Nets is important too, because before the season began last year, I talked about how it was going to be scripted to Kobe Bryant and his Achilles injury. And I also knew Kobe Bryant was going to turn 41 years old on August 23rd last year, and Kobe Bryant equals 41. He just so happens to die in a plane crash at the age of 41, and it was 157 days after his birthday even, right? And it was also on the date of 1/26. And if you go back to the 2016 NBA season, I talked about this player named Bobby Brown that played for the Houston Rockets. And in 2016, he graffitied on the Great Wall of China. And this was when the Rockets were in China, and they were playing preseason games against the New Orleans Pelicans. And what I found interesting about it was later this season, DeMarcus Cousins got traded from the Sacramento Kings to the New Orleans Pelicans, and DeMarcus Cousins' first game against the Pelican, or as a Pelican, was against the Houston Rockets. And then DeMarcus Cousins, in 2018, he tore his Achilles on 1/26. And I talked about how it was synced up to Kobe Bryant tearing his Achilles when Steve Nash and Dwight Howard were on the team. And last summer, when the Lakers signed DeMarcus Cousins, and then I talked about how there was something important to Dwight Howard, and then DeMarcus Cousins got injured, and then the Lakers signed Dwight Howard on Kobe Bryant's birthday, which is also Jeremy Lin's birthday. Jeremy Lin, the Chinese-American basketball player who now plays in the Chinese Basketball League, and so on. And he also had played for the Toronto Raptors, who won last year, or 2 seasons ago, right before Kobe died, right? That's the team that Kobe scored his 81 points against. And then Kobe made his return after his Achilles injury when Dwight Howard and Steve Nash were on the team. He did that on Dwight Howard's birthday the next season, and just so happened to be against the Toronto Raptors. And there's a lot more to this, but Bobby Brown Jr., well, putting it in here backwards, but it's still the same. Bobby Brown Jr. equals this 224 number. This really important number that I've been talking about a lot in these recent videos. And notice Kobe Bryant also equals 224. And Kobe Bryant's memorial was on 224 because his daughter, Gianna, wore the number 2 and he wore the number 24. And there was that episode of The Legend of Chamberlain Heights that came out where Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash. And that episode came out 2 months and 24 days after Kobe Bryant's birthday. And, Kobe's synced up to this. Even Toronto Raptors equal 224. And don't forget that Kevin Durant now plays for the Brooklyn Nets. And Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, when his team, the Golden State Warriors, were playing the Toronto Raptors in the NBA Finals. And back then I even mentioned how that was synced up to Kobe Bryant. And in relation to Charles Manson equals 416, which I talked about in the previous video as well. And this is interesting because this is the Toronto area code, right? 416. So there's a lot more to it. Tisha B'Av was important to this. And in 2019, Tisha B'Av just happened to fall the same day as the SummerSlam was held in Toronto or whatever. And that's important to Hulk Hogan and earthquake symbolism and much, much more. But I'll explain a little bit more about that because it has a lot to do with my friend Cisco. And in satanic gematria, his name equals 224. But think about Cisco and San Francisco. China equals 210 in satanic. And my friend's real name is Chris Schwery, that equals 210. Talked about how it was synced up to my uncle Barney, and who's also Cisco's uncle, who died. And his name equals 210. The word moon equals 210. Sean Connery died 210 days after I talked about how, after Honor Blackman died. Honor Blackman, who played Pussy Galore in the film Goldfinger, so on. And she died 2 months and 24 days before the lead singer of the band Goldfinger's birthday. Her name equals 224. Pussy Galore equals 210. But I don't want to get too far off topic here, but there's definitely something important to this rockets, king, space, China narrative that I have been following for a long time. And, even China equals 126, like the day that Kobe died, the day that DeMarcus Cousins tore his Achilles against the Houston Rockets. And look at DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Amir Cousins. His name equals 126. He tore his, and 81 if you go back and watch. They took him out with 8.1 seconds left. And he played for New Orleans. New Orleans just so happens to equal 126 as well. 126. Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles 126 days after Dwight Howard's birthday. Dwight David Howard II, I think is what his full name is. That equals 126. Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles 1 month and 26 days after Jerry Buss died in 2013. And Jerry Buss just so happened to, his wife just so happened to die just before Dwight Howard's birthday, or right after Dwight Howard's birthday, just before Kobe Bryant died this year, so Dwight Howard's on the team. Then Jerry Buss, the Lakers owner, dies. Then Kobe tears his Achilles. Then Dwight Howard joins the team again. Then Jerry Buss's wife dies, and then Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. Dwight Howard seemingly seemed to be the curse of the Los Angeles Lakers, but it was all pointing to the king symbolism with LeBron James. And remember, in 2016, LeBron King James won the NBA Finals for the Cleveland Cavaliers on the anniversary of the real King James's birthday in history. And a Cavalier just so happens to be a follower of King Charles, who was the king during the English Civil War. And King Charles was the son of King James, and so on. What are the odds that King James would play for the Cavaliers and whatever? And the reason that's important is because 11/19 is not only the day that Charles Manson died, but it is the day that King Charles the First was born. And notice King Charles the First equals 194. And his wife was Henrietta Maria, who equals 194, 282, 142, the Charles Manson numbers. So this further leads me to believe that there's something important to the king narrative that I am talking about, right? It syncs up to the king. And it's interesting to note, too, I guess, something in regards to 224, Charles Manson, his birth name is Charles Maddox, that equals 224. So, I just know that this number is important. Bobby Brown Jr., 224. Charles Manson's real name equals 224. I mean, there's just something really, really important to it. And if you go back to the history of how the Catholic Church, or King Henry VIII, separated from the Catholic Church, it had a lot to do with Charles V, who was the nephew of King Henry VIII's first wife, Catherine of Aragon. And there was this thing called the Sack of Rome. And Sack of Rome just happens to equal 56, and it happened on the date of 5/6 in the year 1527. And basically, he took over Rome, and Pope Clement VII, he was scared to let King Henry VIII get an annulment to his wedding because Charles V was the nephew of Catherine of Aragon, right? But I'm bringing this up just because if you look up Charles V, he was born on 224, and, something interesting. The Sack of Rome that was on 5/6, Sack of Rome equals 56. We talked a lot about the Jesuits. Society of Jesus equals 56. And, you know, the Society of Jesus wasn't formed until the year 1534, which is interesting. That's the same year that Pope Clement died. And Pope Clement died 1 month and 10 days after the Jesuits were formed, and then they were officially recognized as a group by Pope Paul III after Clement died, right? And Pope Paul III was the 220th Pope, and look at this, Paul III in these Francis Bacon. His name equals 220, right? Clement the 7th equals 220. And Pope Francis, he just so happens to have a birthday that's 2 months and 20 days after the Jesuit anniversary. You know, Prince Charles, his name just so happens to equal 220 in gematria. Donald John Trump, his name just so happens to equal 220 in gematria. And honestly, you know, think about Pope Francis, who's got his name from St. Francis of Assisi, which is also what San Francisco got its name after. And the Franciscans, they were actually founded on the date of 2/24, 811 years ago. They'll be 812 years ago to this year, which is even more interesting because the date 8/12 is the 224th day of the year. You know, and there's something important to it. 220 is the day leaving 314 days in the year. Think about how that's connected to pi, right? And when Alex Trebek died, I talked about how it was important to the reflection of pi, because his birthday is 7/22. If you take 7 divided by 22, it's 0.318. If you take 22 divided by 7, it's 3.14, like pi. And there's more to that, but, you know, there's something important to pi. If you write out 3.14, and it equals 224. So there's something very important to how pi fits into this narrative. Even my birthday is on 11/10, which is the 314th day of the year, and it's 3 months and 14 days before the date of 2/24. And 11/10 is also the day that Pope Paul III, the guy who recognized the Jesuits, he died on this day, 11/10. It's also the day that Martin Luther died as well, and Martin Luther has some interesting connections to me. For example, he died exactly 499 years before I was born. And that's interesting because that's the 95th prime number. And my name just so happens to equal 95. And also, my full name also just so happens to equal 95. Think about how the Jesuits were founded on the day leaving 95 days in the year. Martin Luther had the 95 Theses, right? Martin Luther King Jr. died on the 95th day of the year. Also, let me pull up the 95 Theses. Notice how they were published on Halloween in the year 1517, which was also November 10th in the new style, right? So, once again, November 10th, the day Martin Luther died. October 31st, though, is Halloween, and Halloween even equals 95 in gematria. And I don't know, I'm just curious. There's something important to this. A couple years back, my computer and my laptop super crashed, all synced up to pi, and it just so happened to happen on Halloween. And, now we just had Sean Connery die on Halloween, and Sean Connery is showing me all of this stuff that was synced to Alex Trebek and the death of my uncle, and my uncle's name just so happens to equal 314. And I've talked about the synchronicity with my friend Cisco. Hold on a second. Who also equals 314. So, and then Alex Trebek. My Uncle Barty was synced up to the number 318 as well, such as his birthday was 3 months and 18 days before mine, and, a whole bunch of other things. But Alex Trebek died 3 months and 18 days after his birthday. 7 divided by 22, which is his birthday, equals 0.318, which is what we've considered the reflection of pi. So there's something very important to how pi is related to all of this. And then, of course, when you write out 3.14 equals 224, this other big number I was talking about, like such as my friend Cisco, a long time ago, just before my Uncle Barney died, YouTube gave one of my videos of one of me and his music videos a copyright claim, and then a few weeks later they gave my Mitch Hedberg video a copyright claim, and they did so 2 years and 24 days after I put the video out. And Mitch Hedberg, he just happened to be born on 2/24, and when I had time, I blogged about this, and it just so happened to be the date of 2/24. And then in that post, I also talked about my friend Chris Schwery and my Uncle Barney, and I also mentioned his son had the same gematria. And 224 days later, my friend texted me and told me I need to take down that blog post because his son Googled his name and found my blog post and got scared and so on. But what are the odds it'd be 224 days after 2/24, and Mitch Hedberg was born on 2/24, and YouTube gave my video a copyright claim on Mitch Hedberg 2 years and 24 days after I put it out. And, you know, you could go back and watch the previous video, but I talked all about this 2/24 number and how it synced up to Cisco and my friend Sam, and their birthdays are 3 months and 18 days apart. And YouTube gave me they restricted one of my videos 2 months and 24 days after my Uncle Barney's birthday, and then I had some other synchronicity give my girlfriend's brother a ride to work with an old music video and my friend Cisco, and it just so happened to be 224 days after the date of 3/18. So I have a feeling there's something important to pi that I'm supposed to understand with all of this. You know, I don't want to lose you guys, but it's definitely important to pi. Even, you know, I'm working on this book, and I'm titling it The Synchro Mystic that equals 2/24, and I decided to conclude it with this big story about my friend Cisco at 2/24, and I had no idea that the Synchro Mystic even equaled 2/24 at the time, and it was inspired by Zenith of the Alpha America on YouTube here, and his name equals 224, and currently the person who is editing it is my cousin Megan Alice Barrett, whose name equals 224. You know, so what are the odds that Bobby Brown Jr. would have this connection to 224 after all these things that I'm talking about here? And what's even more interesting is that, let me find it here, Zenith actually on November 16th here, he even messaged me on my video here about Alex Trebek and so on, about the number 224 and how he thinks there's something important to the music group BBD, Belle Biv DeVoe. And that's a group that is made up by the members of New Edition, which Bobby Brown, the singer, was a part of. He was a part of New Edition. So now here we got, you know, Bobby Brown's son dying, right after Zenith mentions how there might be something important to BBD, which is, B is the second letter, 224. And their hit single came out on 2/24 called Poison. So, you know, what are the odds that he would, you know, come up with that and think that it's important? And then, sure enough, it absolutely is important. And what's even funnier is my friend Cisco, he never messaged me about anything about this, but yesterday he sent me this message. Like, watch this video. And it's happened to be a Bobby McFerrin video. What is the song? Don't Worry, Be Happy, and it has Robin Williams in it, and the song's about suicide. That's what he was getting at. I didn't know what he meant when I watched it. I just thought, oh, Robin Williams, interesting, right? But then he told me, and then he's like, and Bobby Brown's son died today, Bobby Brown Jr., so you should have fun with that. And then I told him all about the 224 and whatever. So it's interesting that he would randomly text me on this day, and it involves Bobby McFerrin and then Bobby Brown. And Bobby McFerrin just so happens to equal 210, just like his name. Chris Schwery equals 210. Kobe Bryant even died 210 days before his birthday. And recall China equals 210 and satanic. So, San Francisco also equals 210. Maybe it's San Francisco, California. Let me look really quick. San Francisco. It is. I just wrote it in there wrong. And it equals 314. Now, hold on. did that wrong. Woo! 210 though. 210. Think about my friend, whose nickname is Cisco. San Francisco, right? There's something important to that. And Robin Williams just happened to be, he died on August 11th, and remember 2019, before Kobe Bryant's birthday and so on, that was important to San Francisco and Tisha B'Av. You know, this is also the day that they announced that Kamala Harris was going to be the vice president candidate, and she's from the San Francisco Bay Area. Robin Williams got his comedy start in the San Francisco Bay Area. There's something even funnier is I recently just watched the new Aladdin movie with Will Smith in it, and I talked about how the Fresh Prince was having the reunion on Charles Manson's birthday. Think about the Fresh Prince in regards to the king's symbolism. The Fresh Prince equals 224. And Robin Williams was the genie, just like Will Smith was the genie. Even though Robin Williams is way better as the genie than Will Smith, I thought that movie sucked. But even clear back to, remember Pope Francis, he left America on the night of the 4th blood moon of the Tetrad. And then it was later that night when the moon happened, but he left on September 27th, the Jesuit anniversary, from Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, of course, has all these ties to San Francisco, such as how the Warriors used to be from Philadelphia. Now they play in San Francisco and more. But, you know, there's also the movie Herbie the Love Bug was important because Lindsay Lohan is wearing that shirt with a blood moon and the Golden Gate Bridge on it that I talked about a long time ago. So, and this is all important to the Hulk Hogan stuff. It was synced up to Hulk Hogan and how he got his revenge against Earthquake in Philadelphia. How it was synced up to, it was at SummerSlam. That's why I talked about SummerSlam being important to Toronto earlier in the year. I see today that the Toronto Raptors are going to be playing their games in Tampa, which is interesting because in the baseball season, they said that the Toronto Blue Jays were going to be playing in Tampa as well at one point, and then they ended up not playing there and so on. But think about, you know, it's a big relationship. The Rays were in the World Series. So I honestly think that there's something really big for the year 2022 with all this, because I've been talking about 8/6 being important to the year of the Tiger, and we just had Sylvester Stallone. There's a story about him joining the Suicide Squad, right? The film that's associated with Will Smith and the Joker, right? So there's something important to how this is all related. And of course, you know, he's Rocky and Eye of the Tiger. It's connected to Philadelphia. So, but also too, look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden has this connection to China. Joe Biden 126, like China, and even his full name, Joseph Robinette Biden Sr. equals 126. This number connected to China. Look at Kamala Harris. She equals the 164 number that I was talking about with James Bond, and also the 264 number with James Bond. And this is interesting too, because White House equals 264. COVID-19 equals 264. COVID-19, 264. Look at Queen Elizabeth II equals 264. If she dies, her son will become King Charles III. That equals 264. It also equals 134. And Bobby Brown, the basketball player, his birthday is 134 days before Bobby Brown, the NBA player's birthday. And Queen Elizabeth, she's really, really synced up to the Jesuits and so on. I should just make a separate video on this. But, you know, Elizabeth II equals 191, like Society of Jesus. And if you add Queen in there, it equals 84, like Jesuit. And her birthday is 2/6, which is also the birthday of Johann Adam Weishaupt, whose name equals 210, isn't it? Johann. Well, we'll just type it out here. Johann Adam Weishaupt, 310. Thought it was 210. Trying to think. Or the Illuminati was founded 2 months and 10 days before August 11th. That's what it was. But You know, she became queen on 2/6, which is the same day Adam Weishaupt was born, which is 132 days after the Jesuit anniversary. Of course, Catholic Church equals 132, Roman Catholic equals 132, Princess Diana equals 132. Princess Diana died 132 days after Queen Elizabeth's 71st birthday. Princess Diana born on 7/1, the word Catholic equals 71. The House of Windsor, look at House of Windsor that Queen Elizabeth is part of, 191, 187. All these numbers associated with the Society of Jesus, 239. And that was established on 7/1717. 7/17 is Princess Camilla's birthday, which is Prince Charles's new wife. You know, and then Princess Diana was born 7 months and 17 days after Prince Charles's birthday. And then, of course, you know, United States of America equals 132. Did I type it out wrong? Yep. United States of America equals 132. England equals 132. So, you know, think about the Catholic colony. Think about Maryland and Virginia and the Virgin Mary. And the Catholic colony was founded by Cecil Calvert, C.C. Catholic Church, C.C. The St. Christopher Columbus, C.C. The people who sent Christopher Columbus was Isabella of Castile. Isabella of Castile. And Queen Isabella of Castile. And she just so happens to be the wife of King Henry VIII's mother. So Catherine of Aragon was the daughter of the people who financed Christopher Columbus, right? Look at King Henry VIII. His name equals 191, like Society of Jesus. Also 314. 160, right? Catherine of Aragon equals 160. Catherine of Aragon, 160. Reformation equals 160. Just like King Charles. So interesting, you know, there's a lot of interesting connections here. I'm also interested in, you know, JFK, the anniversary of JFK being assassinated. He got assassinated in the year 63, and he met the Pope 35 days after his birthday that year. The word Catholic equals 35, just like how his son died at the age, or what was it? His son equals 35, and his son died 35 days after Marilyn Manson released the video Coma White about the JFK assassination. And JFK Jr. also died 132 days after or before his birthday. Of course, JFK equals 132. Think about Zapruder, that equals 46, like Catholic equals 46. So JFK was killed at the age of 46, and he met the Pope 35 days after his 46th birthday, and then he was assassinated, supposedly on 11/22. And he even died 191 days after Abraham Zapruder's birthday. Of course, Society of Jesus equals 191. He died in the 187th year of the United States. He died 56 days after the Jesuit anniversary. JFK is super synced up to this, but the Beatles' White Album that has Helter Skelter on it, it just so happened to come out on 11/22. So the same day that JFK died. And look at Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter, 210, 314. If you had a Helter Skelter theory on here, that equals 264. Interesting number, you know. Also, trying to think. Elon Reeve Musk also equals 264 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. And this is interesting, too, in regards to space and all this that I'm talking about. You know, they just had the SpaceX launch and so on, and Elon Reeve Musk supposedly had coronavirus on Prince Charles's birthday. His name also equals, you know, and SpaceX was also founded on 5/6, right? 56. But Elon Musk, you know, he's born on the day leaving 186 days in the year. Notice his name equals 186 too. I wonder if I pulled this up here anywhere. I think I did, but possibly not. His name's 210. Yeah, SpaceX equals 186. Elon Reeve Musk 186. Born on the day leaving 186 days in the year. This launch the other day was 194 days after 5/6. The number's syncing up to Catholic. The number's syncing up to Charles Manson. all these things are related. Charles Manson, the murders were just after the moon landing. Look, they even show us a 194 in their little tweet or whatever from NASA. My kids are back up here, so I'm just gonna finish this video because it's hard to make it when they're screaming and stuff in the background. But a few more things I want to mention really quick is that, like, I find it interesting that Whitney Houston died in the bathtub and Bobby Christina died in the bathtub. And if you go back to 2017 when I was talking about Charles Manson and my uncle, a big thing was this major synchronicity I had with the priests in my town, and a lot of it had to do with the number 63. My uncle had died at the age of 63. He was a Knight of Columbus. The priest who supposedly molested me when I was a kid, he got busted on, the article was on 6/30/63, and he got kicked out of the church at the age of 63. And all the priests when I was younger, they all synced up to the number 63. And I discovered that there was a priest, the coolest priest I ever had was Father Paul. And he just so happened to be a Jesuit, and he died in 2010. 6 months and 3 days after the Jesuit anniversary at the age of 63, and he died in a bathtub. And after I mentioned all this stuff, then we got the story about the USS Fitzgerald and the priest who, we've always joked, molested me when I was a kid, who got busted and so on. His name was Father Howard Fitzgerald, right? Fitzgerald, the USS Fitzgerald, and all of them boats are built in, or a lot of them boats are built in the town of Bath, Maine, right? So there's something important to the bath and how Whitney Houston died in the bath. Whitney Houston, Houston, Texas. There's the Super Bowl right after my uncle died, where the Falcons were in, where they were the Blackbird, right? Like the Baltimore Ravens. That was in Houston. There's something important to Houston and how it all relates. And I don't know. There's something important to the 63 number. I haven't really been seeing it a lot. But I know that it's somehow related to this connection to the Jesuits that I'm seeing, I think about the bodyguard too, right? The bodyguard is a Secret Service person, and the secret, it equals the same as Charles Manson, but the Secret Service just supposedly got coronavirus. Think about James Bond. It makes me wonder about Rosie Greer, because we talked about this Rose theme, and Rosie Greer was a football player who later became the bodyguard for RFK and so on. So I mentioned a lot about the Packers and the Ravens in my old post here about the day that Charles Manson died, and the bodyguard in Whitney Houston too. So maybe I should check out the Packers. Maybe there's something important to how the Ravens sync up to the Packers, or vice versa. I haven't watched one sporting event, one football game at least this year, college or pro. I haven't even watched one game. Really could care less, but I just feel like there's something important, so hopefully that makes sense. If you haven't been following me, you have to watch some of my old videos to get it, but there's a lot going on here. I might make a separate video later tonight. I gotta go to band practice, I think, but if I'm not too tired when I get back. Somebody called into the Gematria Effect from Iowa the other night, or I was listening to it the other night, and it's just interesting because I'm from Iowa, so it stuck out to me, but they asked about the connection to the royal family and the Jesuits, so I just want to make a video, and maybe maybe they'll see it, maybe they won't, but there's a huge connection to the Jesuits and the royal family. Even in the book that I'm writing on, I even have a section where I wrote a very small section. I didn't add a lot of details, but because that's really not the purpose of what I'm trying to show in that book, but I even could put them together, Society of Jesus and the royal family, because, they're related through King Henry VIII and the sack of Rome, and so, leave it at that. It's always a riddle, try to figure out this riddle, what it means, so. Even too, look, even Sinbad had just had a stroke, right? And remember when Zachary Ty Bryan got arrested not too long ago? The guy from Home Improvement, which is interesting on Halloween, when I did a Halloween party. I was Kobe Bryant in his helicopter crash, and the guy who owned the bar went with a bunch of his friends as Tim the Toolman Taylor and Heidi and Al and whatever else from Home Improvement. And then Zachary Ty Bryan was in the news just before that. Sinbad has a stroke. Sinbad and Zachary Ty Bryan on this movie called First Kid, where he's like a Secret Service agent for the first kid at the White House. They even have a security breach in Section 47 on that movie. They got White House 47, Democrat, Republican 47, President 47, Government 47, DC 47. Talked about this a few years back, so. But, just pointing out, he's a Secret Service guy, or he turns into one at the end of the movie, right? So, something important to that, but have a good one. Peace.